Pray with me. May these words that I speak be grounded in my soul, encouraged by the God presence in me, and may these words that you hear be captured by your soul, enlivened by the God presence in you. Amen. The Spirit was alive. What was it about that particular time that caused such an amazing story to be told? What transformed those early followers of Jesus from fleeing cowards into courageous champions for God? And I wonder, does this kind of ecstatic experience of God happen today? Happen to us? Jesus was a walking, talking example of the power of the Spirit. His life, after his time in the wilderness with John the Baptist, became God-filled and God-driven. His became a life born out of his growing awareness of an unjust, oppressive world. A life grown in his own humble wisdom, which informed him that compassion in all things is to experience God, to live Spirit-filled and Spirit-blessed. He lived this so well that he inspired men and women, thousands of them, to the same experience. And then he was brutally killed by the very powers of injustice that he challenged, and his followers fled. They fled out of fear that they could be next, and locked themselves behind closed doors and shuttered windows, overcome by grief and a deep, overwhelming despair. But then, something changed. Something changed their minds and hearts again. You see, once your eyes have been opened to a better way, once you have tasted and shared the compassion fruit, once you have felt the embrace of authentic love, you cannot turn back. Their lives had always been lived in fear, and for a brief time with Jesus, they learned how living from a place of love rather than a place of fear was completely life-giving, no longer life-diminishing or life-taking. How could they go back to fear-filled lives? What kind of a life would that be for them now? They couldn't. They wouldn't. And the Spirit of God around them became winds of change, while the Spirit of God within them became flames of passion and hope. It was contagious. It was empowering. And the Spirit of Jesus was born in each one of them in a way that they had not even experienced it while Jesus was with them. This is the Spirit that the Gospel writer John understood when he writes about the Spirit as advocate, and has Jesus tell the followers, this advocate will be with them forever, the Spirit that abides with you, and the Spirit that is in you. Nothing could stop them now. They became ecstatic in love, ecstatic in compassion, ecstatic in hope, ecstatic in joy, ecstatic in life. For the Spirit of Christ, the Spirit of Jesus, was indeed alive within them and among them. For the spirit of wisdom that had been with God from the very beginning of time and before, the spirit of wisdom that became manifest in Jesus, that same spirit of wisdom was rekindled once again in the followers of the way. This spirit of wisdom broke the world's chains of fear that bound them all and held them back, for they now knew the freedom of life lived in love. This God spirit, this spirit of wisdom, was not for the chosen or elite, but was freely given to all, men and women, old and young. This God spirit, this spirit of wisdom, was not for one nation or one culture, but was freely given to all nations and all cultures. This God spirit, this spirit of wisdom, was not in one language, only to the exclusion of all others, but was freely given for all, a universal language of love and compassion, which all can understand and every single person can embrace. This new spirit was not just life-giving, but life-changing. They became an ecstatic community where everyone was included. Every single person was valued, and every person had enough. But others, meaning in this story, those others in the world that had not opened to the Spirit, sneered and called them drunkards. These others' own fear of loss, of power, or of change caused them to attack this new way of being in the world, even though it was good. But Peter finally stands firm. He stands up in the midst of the crowd. And in the first new act of civil disobedience since Jesus' death, reminds them of the ancient prophecy and ends with the words, "For everyone who calls upon God will be saved." What did that mean? It seems to me that these followers of Jesus, now reborn in the Spirit of God, the Spirit of compassion, were now saved from a life lived in fear and saved into a life lived in love. A life full of love, full of hope, and full of joy. They had found a life worth living and a life worth dying for. The Spirit was alive. So what does it mean for us today? Are we living a life worth dying for? Could we become an ecstatic community in our world? Is the Spirit alive in this place that others might sneer and say, they're just drunk on cheap wine? Certainly in the Western world, we are not as obviously oppressed and unjustly treated as those first century Christians. But we continue to live in a world needing strong voices and strong communities of compassion. It is rare to hear the voice of compassion in our halls of government. And most often, if that voice emerges, it is quickly silenced with, "We can't afford it." It is rare to hear the voice of compassion in our corporate boardrooms. And most often, if that voice emerges, it is quickly silenced with, "It will hurt our bottom line." And sadly, it is even rare to hear the voice of compassion in our churches. And most often, if that voice emerges, it is quickly silenced with, "It's not our place to be political." But my friends, the Spirit of God, the Spirit of Jesus, the Spirit of wisdom is clear. As a community of Jesus, As an ecstatic community of the Spirit, we must be the courageous and constant voice of compassion in our halls of government, in our corporate boardrooms, in our governing church bodies, and in our community and in our world. We must be the unrelenting, unstoppable, and unshakable voice of the Spirit of compassion for the good of all creation, and to bring about the kingdom here on earth now that Jesus dreamed of, that Jesus died for. Oh, that may be the dream for all of us who follow the way. To live in this world guided by the Spirit of Jesus, the Spirit of wisdom, the Spirit of compassion, the very Spirit of God, so that we can live with abundant life in all our joys, in all our disappointments, in all our accomplishments, and in all that we are challenged with. For only then, I believe, can our community be a witness of the Spirit of Jesus and a continuous chorus of voices of compassion in our world. For then we will be Spirit alive.